Welcome back, everybody, to Magnolia on Money, where we discuss everything financial from the economy to retirement. I'm Forrest Riles with Magnolia Wealth, and today we're going to discuss the tax-deferred tax trap. Tax-deferred accounts are usually what people think of as their 401ks, their 403bs. It's usually retirement accounts that we are deferring taxes on today while we're working to pull out at a later date, usually during retirement. These tax accounts are very tax inefficient because every single dollar that is in these accounts show up as taxable income. So during retirement, they are increasing your taxable amount of Social Security. It may increase Medicare premiums, and we'll walk through some situations today where you will see you owe more and more taxes and how really the tax trap was formed many, many years ago. Before we get into any tax planning strategies, we really need to know where we are today relative to where we've been in U.S. income taxes. So let's look at this chart. Right to begin with, you see taxes are very low. And this is one of 3 times in history where taxes are lower than they are today. It's right off the bat, but then we see a very sharp increase. And that's because we enter World War I. Now, whenever our country goes to war or is in severe debt like it is today, the first place the government is going to raise money is on the taxpayers. So we see a sharp increase. After the war ends, we see taxes come down again. But we know that only lasts a few years because the Great Depression happens and income taxes skyrocket, and they stay relatively high for the next 30 or 40 years. But Reagan enters office, he promises to lower taxes, and that's the lowest point taxes have been in the last 40 years. But whenever we're talking about tax-deferred accounts, they were implemented in 1975. Now, many people ask, well, why would the government tell me, don't worry about paying taxes today, let's kick it further down the road and just pay taxes at a later date at a lower rate during retirement? But what we found out is it was a tax trap being formed this whole time. So let's take a step back in history. What generation was entering the workforce during this period? It was a huge generation of the baby boomers. So the IRS knew that this huge generation was entering the workforce, and they would essentially be on the government payroll for the next 30 or 40 years while they were working. So they're going to be paying in taxes years and years down the road. But they also knew in 30 or 40 years, when this generation retires, that there's going to be a lot of missed revenue during that time. So to ensure they're not missing out on that revenue, they implemented the tax-deferred accounts, the 401k. So they said, put money over here, don't worry about paying taxes on it today, let it grow, and then during retirement, whenever you pull out, you'll be making less money, so you'll be paying less in taxes. But what we've seen with many of our clients is this is not true. You're paying almost as much, if not more, in taxes during retirement because all their money is in a tax-deferred account, so it shows up as income, as you would have whenever you're working. So we ask all the time, do we think taxes are going to increase or decrease in the future? We already know at the end of 2025, the old tax laws prior to COVID are going to come back, and they automatically raise right to begin with. So if we cannot get an agreement upon a new tax law by 2025, the old tax law will come back, and we already know that's going to increase. So we ask, did the trap work? Did the tax-deferred trap work? Well, at the end of last year, there was $34 trillion in tax-deferred accounts just waiting to be taxed. So that brings us to the question of how much of your 401k, your IRA, is really yours. Whenever I get my statement at the end of the month, I know that that number there at the bottom is not 100% mine because I've deferred some taxes over that period of time. So I owe Uncle Sam his piece. But our tax planning strategy is going to decipher whether Uncle Sam's piece looks like this, or we've seen some circumstances where people do not have a strategy in place. They're just taking out money, or even worse, they're not taking out any money. and it looks like this. So all of your hard-earned money that you've saved over all of this time, Uncle Sam is getting 50% because you have no strategy in place. So that's what we want, to get a strategy in place. We want to be able to take advantage of these low tax environments that we're in today, and don't let the government decide how much in taxes we pay in the future. The big question is how are they focusing on IRAs or retirement accounts? We get asked all the time, Ed, Forrest, can they just reach in and take out what their fair share is out of my tax deferred account? Since we do owe taxes on every dollar in there, can they just reach in and take out what their fair share is, since we are in so much debt as a country? Well, the short answer is no, but the long answer is they've had a lot of tax law changes in the past few years that they are starting to hone in on this money. That $34 trillion that's waiting to be taxed, they're starting to set a trap to take out as much in taxes as possible. So one of the ways they're doing that is the RMD, required minimum distribution, which means at a certain age, they're saying you can no longer kick this bucket down the road. You have to start taking money out and paying taxes. Well, at first, the age was 70 and a half. Then they moved it to 72. Now it's at 73. And they've already announced in 10 years that number will be 75. Well, people say, that's great, right? The government is not requiring me to take out money and start paying taxes. They keep moving it back. But what did we learn in history whenever the government says, do not worry about paying taxes today, let's kick it further down the road and pay taxes at a later date? Do you think that's benefiting you or is benefiting them? So it's benefiting them, and every single person that does not have a tax planning strategy is going to fall into one of two traps. The first trap is if a spouse passes away, their surviving spouse now files as single on their taxes. Now, what does that do? It sounds like it doesn't mean a whole lot, but we'll look at an example shows exactly what this does. So Bob and Susan, they are married, filing jointly. They have a gross income of $110,000. They take standard deduction, which this year is around $29,000. So that makes their taxable income of $81,000. They are in the 12% tax bracket, and their total tax bill on $110,000 is $9,309. So Bob and Susan could be paying 12% on their IRA distributions and getting that money out and paying at 12%. But right now, they just want to kick the can further down the road. They have pensions, they have Social Security, and they're not really having a need to take money out of their retirement accounts. But a few years go by, Bob passes away, so Susan is left filing single. Let's say that Bob had a pension that he had no survivor benefit on, and we know they're losing the less of their two Social Securities. So now Susan is having to pull money out of their retirement accounts and bridge the gap from when Bob was alive. So now let's say Susan lives on $95,000 to continue her standard of living. Well, her standard deduction is cut in half because now she files as single, which makes her taxable income $80,500. Now she is in the 22% tax bracket, and her tax bill is $13,326. So let's look back. We've reduced Susan's income by $15,000. She is living on $15,000 less than she was when Bob was alive. And her tax bill is still $4,000 more than it was when Bob was alive. So that's trapdoor number one, is one of the spouses pass away. Now the next is paying a lot more in taxes when they shouldn't have to. Trapdoor number two is now, let's say Susan passes away. Non-spouse beneficiaries of qualified accounts have to liquidate the accounts within 10 years. So prior to the Secure Act, a beneficiary that inherited a retirement account could spread that tax burden over their lifetime. They had their lifetime to take out the money, pay taxes on it. Now it's cut to 10 years. There's talks about them cutting it to 7 to 5, maybe even to 3 in the future. So what we see in our office is people who generally inherit these type of accounts are in their highest earning years of their life. Therefore, they're paying the highest amount of taxes they've ever paid in their life. And then you throw this amount of money that has to be out within 10 years. So it's being taxed at their highest rate, which may be instead of 12, like Bob and Susan were paying whenever they were married filing jointly, Susan paying 22%. Now their kids may be paying 30, 35% on the same amount of money. So that's why we have to take advantage of these low tax environments that we're in today, is to go ahead and get the money out, pay as small amount of taxes as we can, and move it to a more tax efficient or tax free account. Therefore, whenever you need it in retirement or your kids are left money, they're left an inheritance and not a tax burden. I hope that helps you guys understand of why we need to have a tax plan in place, why we need to take advantage of this low tax environment we are in today relative to where we've been. We know that there are various situations that happen that come up where taxes are going to increase substantially. So we need to take advantage of what situation we're in today and pay as little amount of taxes as we can today. Where further down the road, we're not paying that high amount of income taxes. So thank you guys for joining me for Magnolia on Money this week. We'll look forward to seeing you guys next week.